Hello, my name is I use she, they pronouns, and I am a Master's of Social Work student currently completing my placement with Community Health Centers of Northumberland. I am so glad that you have found this video. My goals in this video are to help you understand what anxiety is and where anxiety comes from. This is going to be a part of a little video series where we focus on anxiety, and in our next few videos talk about some coping strategies to help manage anxiety. But if this is the video you're starting with, you are starting in the right place. So, a helpful place to start is, what is anxiety? Um, Anxiety is a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease, typically about an imminent event, so an upcoming event, or something with an uncertain outcome. It's important to know that anxiety is what we call adaptive. And adaptive means that it is a behavior that we've developed that aims to support us in best coping or living in our environment in the best way that we can. So, what that means is anxiety tries to keep us safe. It's a system in our body that helps us deal with danger. So, anxiety is that system that helps us jump out of the way of a speeding car as it comes towards us, or to perform at our best. So it motivates us to prepare for a presentation at work or school. We experience anxiety when we perceive or think that we are in danger. And this response is great when there is actual danger in front of you, like you are on a walk and you encounter a bear. But can become a problem when that perceived danger is not actually dangerous. So, giving a talk or seeing a dog on a leash. So, in terms of what anxiety looks like in the body, when you experience anxiety, your body's fight, flight, freeze, face, fawn response, which is the stress response, is triggered. And this is what prepares your body to defend itself. We experience anxiety when we perceive or think we are in danger, as I said. And again, this response is really fantastic and important for us when there is this physical, emotional, environmental danger in front of us. But when the danger isn't actually there, when there's not actually a threat in front of us, it can become really complicated. So, all of these responses, the fight, flight, freeze, fawn, face responses, can be helpful in keeping us safe, and they might look different for everyone. But the aim, really, during an activated stress response, particularly one where there is not necessarily a presence of danger, is to engage in the face response. But it's important to know that this is not always accessible to us or appropriate for the situation. So, going through what these look like, take some time to think about times where you have maybe experienced one of these responses. Everyone is capable of experiencing any medley of these responses in stressful or dangerous situations. So, some might resonate with you and some might not. The fight response is exactly how it sounds. It looks and feels like anger, maybe a raised voice, feeling flushed or physically activated in some way. So, some tension in your body, maybe a knot in your stomach, some nausea, you can experience vomiting. And the action behind that fight response is really to defend and protect. So, it might sound like you are wrong. In terms of the flight response, it looks like anxiety, agitation, restlessness, maybe some fidgeting. And the action that you are trying to sort of get to is to leave, to avoid, to deny the situation. So, in terms of what this might sound like, it might sound like, let's talk about something else. Let's focus on this later. Just kind of trying to get out of the situation. Flight, fly away, avoid. The freeze response looks and feels like numbness, closed or rigid posture, holding your breath, having maybe wide eyes, feeling spaced out or outside of yourself. In terms of the action behind the freeze response, your mind and body is sort of trying to shut down, so you might not have much to say. You might also have trouble listening. The fawn response is a newer response that we have identified as part of the stress response. And it looks and feels like people pleasing, neglecting your own needs and boundaries, maybe being scared to say what you think, apologizing a lot, even if you're not in the wrong. And the action behind the fawn response is avoiding and diffusing conflict by engaging in people pleasing behavior. So that's where that compromising or ignoring your own needs and boundaries comes in. And then finally, the face response, which is often our goal, but not always accessible to us in situations of danger, which looks and feels like being connected to other people, engaging in eye contact if that's comfortable and accessible to you, maybe leaning in, being prepared to face whatever situation is in front of you. And the action behind that is asserting yourself, and respecting others. So, when does anxiety become a problem? As I've alluded to, anxiety becomes a problem when it's causing your body to react as if there is danger when there is no real tangible danger in front of you. We can think of anxiety like a smoke alarm system. And this is something that the Anxiety Canada website, which is a great resource, has offered to us. A smoke alarm can protect us when there's an actual fire, but when a smoke alarm becomes too sensitive and goes off when there isn't really a fire, so maybe you have some toast in a toaster that's getting a little too toasty, it can be annoying when that smoke alarm is going off, but there's not an actual fire. So, like a smoke alarm, anxiety is helpful when it works right. So, to protect us from danger, maybe to motivate us for a big event that's upcoming. But when it goes off and there's no real tangible danger in front of you, anxiety can be extremely scary and exhausting to deal with. However, we don't want to get rid of that alarm, that smoke alarm, or eliminate anxiety altogether because anxiety protects us from danger. That's what it's supposed to do. So we want to find ways to support our smoke alarm system, which is bringing our anxiety down to a more manageable level so that it works better for us. Just some quick statistics on anxiety in Canada. It's important to know that struggling with anxiety is extremely common. There's lots of research out there that is being done currently on how many people in Canada experience anxiety. And what we're finding is somewhere between 1 in 4 and 1 in 6 people in Canada, specifically adults, will have an anxiety disorder at some point in their lifetime. And so this is people who have been diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. It's important to know that research can't capture everyone and doesn't necessarily capture everyone who doesn't have access to getting a diagnosis. And so it's likely that this number is very high or even higher than the research is currently finding. Just some quick facts on anxiety. It's important to know that anxiety is normal. As I've said, it's part of the stress responses to keep us safe, but also it's just important to validate that everyone experiences anxiety at times. And if this is something you're dealing with, you're not alone in this. Anxiety can also feel dangerous and harmful in the moment that we're experiencing it, and the physical symptoms at times can be painful. And at the same time, our body's responses are there to protect us from danger so that we don't get hurt. And so, this is a really confusing part about anxiety. Our body is trying to protect us from perceived harm on one hand. And on the other hand, that protection can feel harmful. And so, just being aware that this is the case is sort of the first step in better supporting your anxiety to move forward in a healthy way. The final thing is anxiety does not last forever. So, when we're in the moment of feeling anxious, we may feel like that anxiety will never end, but it's important to remember that this is not true. Anxiety is temporary and will eventually decrease. I wanted to share some common signs of anxiety. So, in the science world, different kinds of symptoms that people experience are put into categories, and these categories are called diagnoses. If you have some of the symptoms that are currently on the screen, you might fit into this category or you might not. If you identify with one or more of these categories and are interested in a diagnosis, you might want to talk to your doctor about it. You might want to go to a walk in clinic if you don't have access to a family doctor. A diagnosis can be helpful because it can give you access to medications and treatments, but also if you identify with one or more of these categories and a diagnosis isn't important to you, then that's also okay. So, these anxiety disorders that I have put on the screen include generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, social anxiety, and phobias. And so I'm just going to quickly go through what each of these look like. So, generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD, is feeling restless, wound up, or on edge, feeling easily fatigued, having difficulty concentrating, maybe feeling irritable. It's common that you'd experience headaches, muscle aches, stomach pain, or any other unexplained pain in your body. You might have difficulty managing feelings of worries, and you might have sleep difficulties, whether that's trouble falling asleep or trouble staying asleep. Panic disorder is sudden and repeated episodes of overwhelming anxiety and fear. So, this is intense worry about when the next panic attack will happen, and often a fear or avoidance of places where panic attacks have occurred in the past. In terms of what a panic attack looks like, we also have put this on the screen. So, these physical symptoms include a pounding or racing heart, difficulty breathing, sweating, trembling of the body, tingling of the body, chest pain, feelings of impending doom, and feelings of being out of control, which are really scary. And this is really what I'm alluding to when I'm saying that sometimes those physical sensations of anxiety can be painful. Social anxiety is feeling extremely self conscious in social situations. So, experiencing persistent, intense, and chronic fear of being judged, feeling shy or uncomfortable when being watched. So, in the situation of giving a presentation at school or work, might be being hesitant to talk to others, feeling the need to avoid eye contact. And in social situations, you may experience panic attack like symptoms, an inability to catch your breath, an out of body like experience, lightheadedness, and some other things. And then finally, phobias. So, phobias are an excessive or irrational fear of a specific object or situation. Often, folks avoid that object or situation, or when they're forced to be faced with it, they likely endure it with great distress. Um, Often, folks experience panic attacks associated with phobias, and this can also include some anticipatory anxiety, so becoming nervous ahead of time about being in certain situations or coming into contact with the object of your phobia. It's important to talk about where anxiety comes from and sort of factors that can influence our anxiety and our ability to manage anxiety. Because anxiety can come from many different places and it's experienced differently by all people. So, we've created this chart here to sort of show you all of the different environments and aspects of your life that come together to create who you are as a person and the ways that you would experience stress and anxiety. So, these are biological, psychological, social, and structural factors. So, in thinking about this and thinking about how these things might impact your your experiences of anxiety, I've come up with some questions to ponder. So, in terms of biological, thinking about whether your anxiety could be related to biological functioning. Have you been able to take care of your body? Have you been able to get enough sleep and rest? Do you have access to being active? Do you have access to getting the nutrients that your bodies need in order to function? In terms of psychological, thinking about how anxiety is related to our overall mental well-being, question of are we in need of additional supports that we don't necessarily have access to? Where's our general mental health at? Where's our general emotional health at? How were we raised to express our emotions? Do we have access to expressing our emotions? Is that something that we experience discomfort with? Socially, thinking about social relationships, are our relationships serving us in a positive way? What was the environment like that we grew up in? What messages did we receive about ourselves growing up? And then finally, structural considerations. So, recognizing that anxiety can come from particular social circumstances in your life, like your access to food and housing, experiences of discrimination based on your identities, and so much more. All of these things can impact the way that we experience anxiety. So the question is, what do we do about our anxiety? And that's a really great question that there aren't necessarily clear cut answers, as this looks different for everyone. But if you check out our next video, we're going to dive into ways that you can try coping with your anxiety and sort of create a game plan for yourself to experiment and find ways that do work for you. So thanks for watching and hope to see you on the next video.